You're listening to The Metal Lens. Life, the universe, and everything from a metal point of view.
Okay, so here we are again, shooting off the cuff. This seems to be a regular thing that we're going to do. We have no clue what the hell we're going to talk about today. I'm Troy, and with me always is Dr. Ramon, head oncologist at that cancer place.
The University of Cancer. Yeah, I'm trying to. I was trying to, in considering things, come up with tie something in with current events. Yeah, trying to tie things up with current events when it occurred to me I have no idea what the current events are.
Well, one of them, which I really don't even give a fuck, and actually I really don't want to talk about it, is the Nike thing.
Oh, that shit, yeah.
With Colin Kaepernick. And, well, you know, at my place of employment, it's a bunch of old middle-aged white guys, which I'm kind of slowly falling into that category myself. And like, oh, it's stupid. Nike's going to lose money. They're fucking idiots. I'm like, really? Really? Nike is idiots? They're a fucking Fortune 5. They're a fucking publicly traded company.
Uh-huh.
How can they be idiots? But you don't understand it. So it must be stupid, right? Coming from the middle-aged plumber called Tommy. Nike's stupid to you.
Tommy knows best.
Well, let me ask you, Mr. Plumber, Mr. 57-year-old plumber Tommy, how much money, how many Nike products do you own? I don't own any of them motherfuckers. Okay, well, they didn't lose any money there, did they? Let's think about this. What do you think Nike's target demographic is? White middle-aged plumbers named Tommy?
Probably not.
Probably not.
Probably not. So they're not spending all of their money on Tommy.
They don't give a fuck what Tommy thinks.
No.
Because he's not buying Nike shit anyway.
He's buying Pumas.
Probably fucking, he's buying New Balance is what the fuck he's buying.
Ah.
So, you know, so what's Nike's target demographic? Probably 20 to it's probably pretty broad, up to 18 to probably 40 to 50-year-old black. Well, it doesn't have to be men either. Men and women. I guess, at least with football, with Kaepernick, it's probably men.
Well, it's anybody who aspires to or is inspired by, you know, their admired athletes, because
No. With all the bullshit going on with the Colin Kaepernick thing, with the protest against the black people and all that stuff, it's their target demographic, and they know who's buying their shit. They do tests on this, and they study this shit.
Sure.
It's black kids and probably up to 40, 50-year-old black adults. Black males. That's who's buying their shit.
Well, yeah, I mean, that doesn't exclude what I'm saying. I'm just, you know, that's part of, like, there's Nike swooshes on all the fucking, you know, all the athletes who are in the NFL, the NBA.
Well, that's their move. That's their move with Colin Kaepernick.
No.
There's no other reason to put him as the face of Nike. And they did a great job, and they're going to make millions. Yeah. More millions.
Yeah, despite the protests.
Despite Tommy the plumber thinking they're stupid. Mm-hmm. They're going to be laughing all the way to the bank. And the shareholders are going to be going, keep going. I'm making a thumbs up symbol right now. Like a.
We'll get video footage of this later.
Yeah.
So
anyway,
we'll fake
fuck
it.
that. I don't even want to talk about that anyway. I don't give a fuck.
Yeah.
Current events. Well, currently, there's a lot of things going on currently. Currently, I broke my bass. I snapped the truss rod. I have a 2007 Amber Fireglow Rickenbacker. And for people who don't know, it's a very beautiful bass. And it plays well. It sounds great. I was having problems with the neck and didn't realize it was kind of unstable, and didn't realize that the truss rods are pulling through the body, the neck through it, where it meets the body, and until I tightened it and tightened it and tightened it through a course of time until I popped the motherfucker. And then I shit on myself a little bit. And then I got myself together and went to Home Depot and, pulled them out and realized they were just common round bar. So I fixed it for $5 at Home Depot. And the base is back together and all is well in the world.
They're fucking ingenuity, man. And, you know, that's the thing about this is something I've been complaining about for a long time, is just that, or at least in my day, you know, when I was a Ute,
What's a Ute?
The music market, the musicians market, was such a niche thing. All right, I understand that, you know, to manufacture a guitar is no small feat. Okay, at least something that's good quality. You know what I mean?
Oh, I've tried to do it. I've tried to build my own,
and
it's wildly complicated. The hardest thing really is to get the spacing of the strings.
Really?
On like if you're manufacturing your own bridge,
Mm-hmm.
and even if you're not, actually, I mean, you can buy all the pieces and put it together.
Right.
But if you're cutting your own nut to place the strings in and cutting the grooves for, say, a custom set of strings like you might have to do, and getting that spacing right is fucking blah. It involves math I don't give a fuck to want to know about.
Even more so than like the scale of the neck and the fretboard.
That's fairly easy to figure out. You decide on what your scale is going to be, either long scale or short scale. With bass, it matters. Short scale is better, really.
Yeah.
Because the intonation's better.
Yeah.
And you just divide that in half, and that's where your 12 string's going to be, and you know about where your nut's going to be and where your bridge is going to be. And I figured that out because I was building an upright, and but this because you know for strings, the strings are different sizes.
Yeah.
So you can't take the space of the nut and equally lay them, because you have to take in consideration
the width of each string.
Oh, fuck it, dude. The closest I got to it was getting in a dark room and eyeing it up with a laser. Shooting a laser down and eyeing it up and making pencil marks. That's the closest that I got to it. Trying to measure it out, no, fuck it.
Yeah.
It's really complicated. It's hard, and you'll know it when you feel it. You know the spacing's off.
Right.
You know.
Which is funny because like
you'll know it.
That's just something that you intuit rather than necessarily measure.
Right.
Because they weren't using lasers when they were building like Stradivarius violins and shit like that.
No.
You know, you just know.
Right.
You just know. But back to what I was saying though, like it's difficult to put an instrument together, and you know, sure you'll pay a good amount of money for a beautiful piece of wood that makes a beautiful sound. I understand that, you know, but I mean, even, you know, beyond that, you've got all your electronics, all your stuff. The stuff is so, this stuff has always just been so expensive. And I can't help but wonder to myself, like, shit's gotten, I mean, you know, you can easily spend $2 or $3 grand on a nice guitar or a bass, you know, and about the same for a really good, tube amplifier or something like that, you know. But then you can also get that shit so cheap, you know, because mass production has become way more common than it used to be with, to meet the demand. And the demand is basically, well, even this may not be quite as true anymore, but a bunch of 16-year-olds asking for guitars for their birthdays or whatever, so they can be the next I guess Eddie Van Halen is a little outdated. I don't know. Who are the guitar heroes of the last 10 years, man? Because I don't even know.
You could pack on the 40 pounds and be the next Tenacious D.
There you go. Is that, if that's a guitar hero, dude, I give up. I'm gonna go ahead and switch to the kazoo.
That dude Kyle, yeah, he's good. But anyway, yeah, I mean, what got me into it was I was always pissed off with the jazz bass.
Mm-hmm.
It made me, and I had other basses too that I've played, and I was not happy with the way they were always set up.
Uh-huh.
And they were set up with a tone
Yeah.
for both pickups and a volume knob for each pickup.
Okay.
I thought that was ignorant.
You would want to adjust the tone for each pickup.
No. I wanted a master volume is what I wanted
Hmm.
on a jazz bass. I wanted a master volume.
Okay.
Because if I was, especially playing with distortion and everything, and if I wanted to kill it, I wanted to reach down with my pinky and kill a bass.
Mm-hmm.
But you can't, because you got to kill both of them.
Gotcha.
And the master tone is fine. I didn't have a problem with that.
Mm-hmm.
Because typically when I played a jazz bass, I used both pickups.
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes I wanted more meat or whatever, which would be the neck pickup, and I wanted a master volume, a blend, and a master tone. The blend knob would have an indent in the middle, so
Okay.
it would stop and like, okay,
Right.
that's middle,
Right.
that's both, and then I can go all the way neck or all the way. And I actually have that orange one up there. It's a Mexican jazz body
Mhm.
with all parts fretless neck that I really lucked out on. It neck is gorgeous. I really want to put that bass together because that neck is phenomenal.
Yeah.
And that's how I set it up. I set it up as a master, and I had this one here, this black it's a Rogue or something,
Uh-huh.
whatever. It's or Dean.
Dean, yeah, yeah.
It's a Dean, and that was set up the same way.
Mm-hmm.
And it was which is really my favorite setup, is a PJ, Precision Jazz pickup.
Mm-hmm.
But it was the same way. It had a volume for the jazz, it had a volume for the precision pickup, and a master volume. So I took that shit out and I put a blend,
Mm-hmm.
a master volume, a blend, and a master tone.
Man, remember just fucking with and like kind of hacking your way
I have
into
a
like
box of parts here. Look, that's all. There's bridges and pickups and.
I love it, dude.
Here's a pickup plate here. Here's one right here. That's the original one that I took out that orange bass, and that's the volume tone.
So obviously we still do it, you know? But like before you can like remember that 4-track Fostex,
Fostex, yes.
that tiny little tape 4-track recorder that I had. Man, I got
You had to use the high bias chrome tapes.
is that what it was?
Yes.
I know you had to use
high bias chrome.
they can only be a certain length, I think 60-minute max, because if you got any longer, the tape would be thinner, and it was so transparent you could hear the other side while you were playing it back, which actually made for some really neat effects. And that was a thing because, dude, you had 4 tracks, right? Basically 2 on one side, you know? So 2 tracks was stereo side A, the other remaining 2 tracks was
Well,
stereo side B.
Yes, that's right. That's
Right.
yes.
Right.
That's
So you could
exactly
only
how it
record
went,
on
yeah.
one side.
You can only record on one side.
Flip the tape around, it's playing backwards.
Yes.
If you play tracks 3 and 4, it plays backwards. And so, dude, I got so creative because I was forced to.
Mm-hmm.
I did way more creative stuff with that thing, okay? And had so much more fun with that thing than I did with any of the fucking, digital workstation shit that I had, just because I was so confined and I desperately had to seek out something to create, whatever sound that I wanted to, whether it was in my head or not. That's just what I was forced to do. Remember that shit that we mixed in your living room in Lexington Place? Well, not mixed, we recorded it there.
That was on that Fostex.
That was on that same thing.
Okay.
You
Yeah, I
just
do
come up
remember
with all kinds of weird shit. I mean, we were kids
in the living room.
in the living room. That Casio keyboard.
A poor old mama sitting in a rocking chair with her earplugs in reading her book. That's what she did.
She was tolerant of that shit too.
Well, even though we were fucking lunatics
Mm-hmm.
and we fucked up and did our shit, but we were home and we were safe.
Yeah.
And that's all they were worried
So
about.
they were concerned about.
They knew where all of us were.
Yep. And that shit was so creative, though.
And I mean, we put in the time.
Oh, yeah.
We put in the time. I mean, we would fucking. Because we were there, and then they would cook lunch. They would cook us hamburgers and shit. So we were there from like 10 in the morning till fucking 9, 10 at night.
And that was it. That was all day.
It was all day.
Yeah. Because I didn't have anything better to do.
No, none of us did.
Yeah. I mean, that was pretty much life, man. That was every weekend.
Sean was the only one with a girlfriend at the time.
The
We were-
salad days, man.
We were building the chops.
Building the chops. Hell, I still remember my first tube amp. Sovtech.
Yes.
Yep.
Those are still desirable today.
The MiG 100s? The
Yes.
ones that I have?
Yes.
I heard the MiG 50s were a little bit more in demand.
Oh, really? Well, the beautiful thing about those were they were just power.
Yeah.
They
Yeah.
were just two power.
Yeah.
Nothing fancy, nothing great, just two power. Here it comes.
You can get a little gain out of them. You know, especially if you rebias and switch out the tubes and stuff.
Yeah.
You know, but I mean, you got a little bit of gain out of them. But that's predominantly what we used them for, was just power. And those things put out a lot of volume.
Yeah, it was,
A lot of
it
volume.
was power. It
Mhm.
was.
They were mysterious. I left them for Lanny to start working on. You remember Lanny, huh?
Oh yeah.
To work on. He could never get the schematics right for him. He couldn't find
It was all Russian.
It was- yeah, it was like Soviet secrets, man.
Yeah.
You could never dig that shit up because the KGB had him hidden away. But they were sitting in his shop right up in
Yeah, because
Katrina.
I'm looking at it right now. My SWR SM100, SM400.
Uh-huh.
That's a true stereo bass amp, which is very rare nowadays. They don't make them stereo anymore.
Yeah.
They're just mono amps,
Uh-huh.
which, whatever. But back then, the big deal was, you buy amps, so you have your 410s and your 15. That was the setup,
Mm-hmm.
So you run all your lows through your 15 and your highs through your 410s.
Uh-huh.
That really didn't make a difference.
Yeah.
It really didn't.
Really?
So that's why they're just mono amps now.
Mhm.
But I bought that at Chalmette Music. Son of a bitch.
Dude, that thing's old as dirt.
God. 97? 98? Probably 98.
Yeah.
It had to be before 2000.
Definitely.
Because I want to... Did I have it for that Revelation 95 gig?
I don't remember, dude.
I think I might have still had the Gallien Kruger head. Or that Fender Bassman.
I'm thinking the Fender, but the Gallien Kruger wouldn't be an impossibility.
So I'm thinking it had to be like 97, 98. Is when I got that, and I'm using it now.
Did you get the Eden cabinet around the same time?
No.
That was way after?
That came later. That came later.
Okay. What were you running that through? The SWR.
Probably through the SWR. I've ran everything. I've had other heads. I've always gone back to that head right there. I've taken it apart a few times. When we went on the road to Rat in a Bucket, I had Lanny take it apart and clean it. The fan stopped working, and he took it apart and found a capacitor had broken off and jammed into the fan. He pulled that out, turned it on, and the fan started working again. Never did find out where the capacitor went. It probably just filtered noise for the fan or something. But fuck, I've abused and since fuck 90, I don't even know how long that is. 20 fucking years?
20 some odd years, yeah?
20 some odd years. I'm still using that head today.
Nice.
And I can't get a better. It's got this warm smoothness to it. Because I could run the fuzz pedals and distortion pedals through it, and it's kind of abrasive. And I run it through that SWR, and it just it's smooth. It's creamy. It's got this creaminess to it that I can't get out of anything else. I've actually looked, and they'll come up on eBay from time to time. You can find it for about anywhere from about $300 to $400.
Okay.
Fuck, I think I paid like $1,200 for it or $1,300 for it when I bought it in '97. I was a kid. I don't even know how I had the money to fucking buy it.
That's a good question. I don't know either. I think I paid about $1,000 for that Softac. Maybe not. It was less than that.
Well,
no way I paid $1,000 for that. Now that I'm thinking about it, no, that was probably more like $400 or $500 maybe. Yeah. I
think that was the thing about those heads. It was good, cheap, clean power.
That's true. Yeah. Now I paid $1,000 for that that Peavey. That was around 900 something. The Triple X.
Yeah.
That was a good amp. Yeah, I've been through some cheap, shitty amps since the Softac, but that Triple X was a nice head.
Thinking of cheap, shitty gear. Well, I don't know about shitty.
Speaking of nice head,
you remember the Digitech RP1?
God, do I? Boy, did we have the wrong idea.
It was so electronic sounding. It just had this. It had no warmth to it at all. It was just. It's like you could just hear the silicone chips just.
I wonder because, I mean, I will happily admit that we didn't know what the hell. Well, no, I didn't know what the hell I was doing when it came to getting a decent sound.
I've struggled. I still struggle with it. Because there was always, and for a while, it really frustrated the fuck out of me. And especially for bass, because I really think bass is a totally different animal than guitar.
Yeah.
Well, you when you're dealing with distortion, it's kind of loud distortion. It's there. It's not, whatever. But and it's in the frequency of the ear that's most hearable,
right?
In that mid range. But with bass, it's typically acoustic, and to get that good acoustic sound, every room you put it in makes a huge difference. It changes it completely. That's why you have shelving. You have a bass knob, a treble knob, and then you have a paragraphic EQ. But the bass and the treble knob is there just for the room you're in. It's a real bassy room. Then you shelve that down, and that's really what it's for. Of course, we didn't understand all that at the time.
Right.
But there was this certain sound. I've heard it many times, and I've sought after it, and I still can't really get it. It's kind of got this ingy fucking kind of thing to it, but it's got that good bass underlying tone to it as well. And it's just a fantastic sound, and I'm still trying to chase it. And, you go after speakers. Speakers have a lot to do with it. And the closest I've really gotten to it is I have, and I've actually tried to record this. I know I did. And didn't really translate as well, but in this room, the keyboard I have, it's got those two little 5-inch speakers on it. Little crappy. It's a mid-range Casio keyboard. It's fairly decent for what it is. The sounds aren't great, but it's not crap.
Right.
It's definitely not really studio quality.
Yeah.
But it's got these little 5-inch speakers in it. And there's a mic input, so I can plug my bass into it. And with those little bitty speakers at a low volume, I get that tone.
What?
I get that tone out of those little speakers that I'm looking for.
That's strange. How do you?
And really,
but it's a confined volume though, and a confined. I mean, you can't really do anything with it.
No, and that's the thing. You can't really do anything with it. But that's the closest I got to that tone that I'm looking for.
Weird.
And so, I mean, looking for tone, looking for that sound, you chase that forever.
I was talking to my buddy Mike recently. And you remember, this has come up before, the Boss, what is it, the Boss Metal Zone pedal? He was, I think he was looking at some demos on YouTube or whatever. And it was the H.
Hypermetal.
Yeah.
This is the MT2.
Okay.
This is the Metal Zone 2.
The Metal Zone, yeah. They had the hyper metal, they had the heavy metal pedal.
Yeah, the heavy metal.
I think the Metal Zone is the more common one. This one here.
Well, and commonly it's a horrible pedal. It's people hate those fucking pedals.
Yeah, they do.
A big thing that's going on now is pedal mods.
You know.
But the thing that I really liked about that pedal, a feature that at the time a lot of these pedals didn't have.
I know what you're gonna say.
Well, it's got a paragraphic EQ.
Paragraphic EQ.
It's got a high and a low, a split knob.
Yep.
It has a middle frequency and a middle volume. So you can dial in a frequency, like if you want meaty, you can go to 200 and you can boost to 200.
Yep.
It's got an equalizer. It's got a fairly good equalizer.
Dude, I don't know if I mentioned this.
It's not just a tone knob or just a high and low knob.
Right.
It's got you can really
you can control
in
the sweep and you can control
Yes.
the gain and the, dude, there are people, I might have mentioned this to you before. There are people who use that pedal just for the parametric EQ. They kick the gain all the way down. They find a nice little sweet spot so the tone isn't too, saturated, and man, they just use the EQ. Now, I can't substantiate this by what I've heard, okay? This is just going by what my buddy Mike said, but he said that he saw reviews, people messing with that Metal Zone pedal right there, and they put it in front of an amp and they played through it, and it sounded like the same thin transistory shit that people complain about it. Yeah, exactly. Then they take the same setup, they take that pedal and they run it through the effects loop of an amplifier, and that made a huge difference. Yeah. Because what you're doing is, instead of sticking this this deeply affected transistorized signal and putting it in front of an amp before the preamp. Okay, so you're basically dirtying up this preamp signal. All right, they're running that through the effects loop, which means it's going before the power amp.
Yes.
Okay, so they're effectively turning this into a preamp. In other words, they're integrating that into the preamplifier of the amp itself. Okay, and that's where your gain stages are coming from. And evidently, okay, like I said, I need to go check this out myself. You get a much more natural, saturated tone and sound out of that than you would by putting it in front of the amp.
Oh, here you go. Go fuck with it.
All right, I'll be right back.
Jason's got my Proco Rat right now.
Oh, okay.
And I've never had a lot of success with effects loops. It's a preference thing, and I don't like my effects through the effects loop of the amp. Jason uses his effects loop.
Okay.
He's got a 5150. He's got the old 5150. He's got the good one.
Right.
And it's a beast. Oh my God, that's a beast of a fucking amp.
It's a good amp.
It's savage. And he uses the effects loop. Now, he uses his amp distortion, but all his delays and reverbs and effects, he runs through his effects loop. And it's a preference thing, but, and that's what people will, do you put your volume pedal before or your volume pedal after? You put your wah pedal here before the fuzz, or you put your wah pedal after the fuzz, or where do you put them in the chain? Yeah. You fuck with it and you find out what works
eventually,
for you.
Yeah, it ultimately comes down to, whatever sounds good, whatever you prefer.
I use a wah pedal, and I use it. It's the first thing in the signal chain. Mm-hmm. That's where I like it. That's where it sounds best.
That's where I would put it, too.
My delay is the last thing in my chain.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Modulation effects, like say a phaser or a octave, would be before my distortion, not after. I think they sound better before distortion.
Okay. Yeah.
You might like it. What the sound you're looking for might be better afterwards.
Mhm.
I'll like it before.
Hmm.
I think especially the octave has much more. It grabs the distortion much better. It sounds really strange and kind of, it's a different cool effect,
Mm-hmm.
but it doesn't sound as a prominent go-to, like if that's your sound. It'd be more of just like a kind of effect, like just for like a part thing if you want to use it after the
Mhm.
distortion, like it before. Most typically, your modulation effects sound better before, especially if it's a heavy fuzz.
Mm-hmm.
Because regular distortion and fuzz are completely different.
Mm-hmm.
You really got to be careful what wah pedal you use if you're using fuzz, heavy fuzz. Wah pedals don't really like to fuck with fuzz.
I can imagine it sounding way too thin and whiny.
Actually, no. It's not responsive.
Not
It doesn't really
responsive.
respond to it.
Oh, really?
It doesn't sweep it.
I can see that.
It doesn't really do much to it.
Well, but the fuzz, I think, kind of, if that's the case, then it makes sense in my head, and I'm thinking about it. Then the fuzz kind of relies on the full range
Yeah.
of the signal that you're putting into it.
Yeah.
You know, because it's so spread, it just scatters your sound
Yeah.
into
and,
this wide fan of harmonics
and
and shit.
especially nowadays with the metal that's going on now, it's a heavy, low fuzz, and your wah pedal really needs some high end to bite into.
Mm-hmm.
You know, it doesn't really respond well to low frequencies, and if it doesn't have enough mids and high mids to bite into, then it's not really going to do anything.
Yeah.
And that's the problem you have with fuzz. You really got to fuck around with that in your chain to find out where you need it.
Yeah, you might want to start sticking some things in the effects loop at that point.
Yeah, and that's what you have to do, because you can read forums and they'll tell you all kinds of shit on where to put you where, but bottom line is you got to find out what the fuck works for you.
God damn.
And that's like when I broke my fucking truss rod, you know. I went to the forums. The Talk Bass is a really good one for a bass that's been around forever.
Mm-hmm.
And, you on a Rickenbacker, you better know, you better not mess with that. You better take that to a luthier. And when you take it to a luthier, you better make sure he's done Rickenbackers before, because you can really fuck that thing up. Well, I don't know. I went to Home Depot and fixed it for $5.
Only time will tell.
So, yeah, last practice we had, Mr. Joseph was here,
Uh-huh.
and we're dying to get him on the podcast.
Yeah.
Talk about all kinds of good stuff. Apparently Mantar, a bunch of shit. I'm so fucking busy, I don't keep up with it, and neither do you. Mantar's put out a new album.
What is that, man? I don't even know who these guys are.
They're a two-piece out of Germany, I believe.
Mantar?
Yeah, Mantar.
All right.
They're really good. It's guitar and drum.
Uh-huh.
The guitar is really good, which it has to be.
Uh-huh.
It's really gritty, really
Okay.
ugly and gritty. Heavy as hell. The drummer's phenomenal.
Uh-huh.
Oh shit! I got it on my phone. Ode. It's a fucking badass. I haven't listened to it yet because I just found out about it. But I've their Ode to the Flame was one of their albums.
Uh-huh.
That's really good. Death by Burning. Death by Burning is the best one. That's the first album that's really good. The Modern Art of Setting Ablaze.
They like setting shit on fire, don't
They
they?
do. They really do.
Okay.
And God damn it. It's the only thing about Apple Music. Anyway, if you could see that like it really matters, but it's kind of like a picture of some kind of sculpture or something, a bronze thing.
Yes.
But I just like that, the Modern Art of Setting Ablaze.
Modern artist setting.
So I'm really looking forward to that. And he also told me that Alice in Chains has put out a new one, and it's Raining Blue or Raining something, because they put out a new one with the singer Rainy or Fog.
Rainy or Fog.
Yeah. Again, I haven't listened to it yet, but looking forward to checking that out. Because they got the new singer, of course, and they put out one album with them, and it really didn't go over too well. But they said this album is really good. And you've heard pieces of this,
I've heard some of one track.
and
yeah.
I heard it was very good. So
It sounded like Alice in Chains, and you know what? Nobody else, in my opinion, really sounded like Alice in Chains.
and that's
so that's a sign of a signature.
that's very
sound.
exciting.
Yeah.
I'm definitely looking forward to checking that out.
Well, I mean, it's been suggested that Alice in Chains really, I mean, despite how great he was, it really was about. It wasn't so much about Lane Stanley.
No, even though I did like what he did.
Sure. Yeah. But what was that guitarist?
Jerry Cantrell.
Jerry Cantrell. Jerry Cantrell. I mean, he's
All of them are flat out phenomenal.
well. The
If
rest
you
of them
really-
have been. They've been a consistent band, and except
yeah.
for okay.
Oh yeah, if you really pay attention to what the bass player does,
Yeah.
incredible. And the drummer
Yeah.
is that Unplugged album.
Okay.
Listen to the drummer. Oh my God,
Mm-hmm.
he's so tasteful, and he sounds he's good.
Right on.
It's incredible if you really pay attention, because you don't really notice him because he's not flashy.
Mm-hmm.
But if you really listen to what he's doing,
Mm-hmm.
his fucking drummer's phenomenal.
One of my favorite bands is on tour right now. I think the closest they've gotten to here was like in Houston, and I'm just my days of driving to Houston for a show are over, and
Yeah.
I've never driven to Houston for a show. So
Right.
what does that tell you? But anyways, Killing Joke, they've been doing a U.S. tour with their more or less their original lineup, their original drummer. The
They've
singer's
been
always
around
been
forever,
there.
huh?
Dude, that band is as old as I am.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so they got together, original guitarist, original singer, original drummer, original bass player, I think. I can't remember. One of them died, one of the bass players, but I can't remember. But whatever, Youth is playing with them. Anyway, the point is, not only are they absolutely kicking ass, but I saw video footage of them, and I thought this was kind of interesting. So, if you don't know, they play a lot of post-punk,
Yeah.
industrial, metal, kind of just it's a variety of shit that they put out. Really good stuff. I was watching the guitar player, and I've noticed, he does a lot of open, jangly chords, and he does a lot of like chunky palm muting stuff. And I was watching him play, and I'd never noticed this before, but I was looking at his right hand, his strumming hand, and his strumming hand just kept going up and down. Okay, just like it was strumming flow, free flow, but the palm mutes were there, no matter what he was doing. Okay, so it was just according to tempo, and I don't know how to describe this, with audio only. But his hand was just going, his wrist, at the wrist, up and down, like this. Here's the rhythm: 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. He's playing eighth notes. 1, 2, 3, 2, 1. Dun, 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 dun. But what you were hearing was a combination of he was doing upstrokes, palm muted, and it sounded just as clean and indecipherable as any of the downstrokes that he was doing.
Wow.
Palm muted. Okay,
Yeah, and I bet it looks smooth as hell.
dude, he was just
Yeah.
he looked like just Willie Nelson strumming a guitar,
Mm-hmm.
but what you heard was completely different. It was not just open strumming, he was I'm thinking of The Weight, which
Yeah.
Metallica covered on
Right.
Garage Days. So but that's what his hand looked like, just up and down. But the palm muting, you couldn't even tell he was palm muting if you weren't if you were just looking at it, but you were listening to it. And dude, I was fucking thrown off by that, because that's a technique that over 40 years you develop and you master, and
Yeah.
you just learn to play like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's interesting, because I really See, I always thought, as far as metal, is really concerned, Crowbar was a master of the upstroke, because you could tell when they did an upstroke, and he did the upstroke at the right, like jin 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 jin, and hit that upstroke. It's like the upstroke,
Yeah.
which is kind of for a long time everything was downstroked.
Yeah.
Everything was downstroked, and it's
Oh,
all
yeah.
downstroke.
Oh yeah. Fucking James Hetfield, man.
Yeah,
That's all he fucking.
It's
did.
all downstroke. And the alternate picking was kind of more of a mid-tempo.
And the fast stuff,
Yeah, well, shredding. But the upstroke, man, good stuff.
Dude, I mean, I've been looking at these. This is an interesting series of YouTube videos, and I think it differs different depending on what song we're talking about. But it's this guy who does these demonstrations of what he calls like levels of guitar playing.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and it's interesting because he'll take a really common riff. Okay. The one I saw most recently was "Smells Like Teen Spirit," right?
Yay.
Now he would play it at its most face value, the way that you would probably play if you just learned it by ear as like a 14-year-old or whatever. Okay, it's power chords and. That's basically it, right? Just playing the power chords, right? And forget tempo for a second. Tempo, just completely irrespective of whatever tempo it was. But he would say, okay, this is level 1 of Smells Like Teen Spirit. And he would play it this very basic way, all right? Then he would say, level 2. And then level 2 is like you start to notice a little subtle nuance to the riff that wasn't included in level 1. So he'll say, well, by the way, that note right there is just hitting the strings open. You're not holding down anything. It's all 6 strings open. Okay? And when he played it, and especially when he played it to tempo, you're like, oh yeah, I guess that's kind of true, huh? So he would do that, and then he would go up to
it's
level
a little short
3.
thing, just
Yeah.
It's a little short and immediately muted to the next note. Yes. Yeah.
And then he would move on to level 3, and then he would introduce another little subtle nuance that you either never really picked up on, or you just wouldn't do it if you weren't Kurt Cobain, because he just played the way that he played, and not too many other people. And so one of the nuances, one of the subtle levels was upstroking.
Yeah.
In certain spots, you know what I mean?
Right.
And when it came to and in this case it was level 7, which is interesting. How can you do level 7? Well, he did it,
On that
broke
riff.
that down to exactly the introductory riff to Smells Like Teen Spirit. And it's kind of fascinating, man, because it's not so much like painting whoever came up with these riffs as a technical genius, although that's subjective.
Yeah.
But I mean,
It's just the way they played it.
it was the way they played it. He learned it a certain way. He fucking I don't know if he ever took music lessons or not. It doesn't really matter. But I mean, it was just a characteristic sound. It was his style. You know what I mean? His way of playing. And I'm not just sitting here like trying to endorse Kurt Cobain or anybody. But I want to see more of that series, because it's actually kind of interesting to just kind of break down what is normally just kind of like a textbook riff,
Right.
or something that you hear people just kind of practice at just to play a guitar at a music store
and
just to see what it
especially that
sounds
riff,
like.
because if you want to play alternative music, well, that's the first riff you learn.
Right, because of the radio play or whatever.
Well, and it's so simple.
But it's not, and that's kind of the point.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like if you really wanted to replicate it the way that Kurt Cobain played it,
But you could
you would
play,
have to fucking work on it.
But you could play 4 power chords and you can play that song.
Yeah, you could play 4 power chords and you could do it perfectly clean and in perfect tempo and so on. But it's not the way he played it.
Because
Yeah.
you get dan 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 dan. And
Right.
That's the song, but it's not exactly how he played it.
Right, and so where are those lightly palm muted strums in between those power chords, right? Are you hitting those? Yes or no, right? So I guess it just kind of it raises the bar, is what I'm saying, you know. And the point is not to sound like Kurt Cobain. The point is not to, I guess, sound like Tony Iommi or whatever riff that you're talking about. The point is to just continue to challenge yourself and to notice these little subtle differences, but in the different riffs. Another thing, it wasn't the same series, but it was about AC/DC's bass player. Mm-hmm. Have I told you about that?
Yeah, I've seen that.
Did you see that one?
Yeah.
I love the one for Back in Black.
Yeah.
The dun,
When he
doo-doo-doo,
when he plays the
doo-doo-doo.
chord.
He plays the what is it? I guess it's a major fourth.
Yeah.
Above the A. Yeah.
And you don't really hear it. You don't really.
You hear it, but you don't really pay it that much mind.
No.
At least I don't. I don't say like, oh, look at that phenomenal bass note that he just played just now.
Right.
But when you hear it being played, like in other words, so the riff is like the guitarist is basically playing power chords. The bass player, instead of mirroring the root of each power chord perfectly, when it goes E, D, 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 A. I just did it unconsciously. Da da da. That's the A. But the bass doesn't go dum, da da dum, da da dum. The bass goes dum, da da dum, da da dum. Okay, so the bass actually plays that doesn't play the root. He plays that major fourth above the root, and it's a cool little subtle thing. And
fucking bass players.
Fucking bass players, man. How do they work?
Well, a lot of times you got to keep yourself interested back there, you know.
But the thing is, I think it's those tiny little subtle things that make all the difference in the world. You know what I mean? I mean, if you look at the transcription in Andy, what was his name, Aladort.
What?
Remember the guy who used to do all those transcriptions, and who would do the transcription books for, I think it was Guitar World magazine.
Oh, I never paid attention to who it was.
I never paid attention. His name was Andy something.
Oh.
If you looked at all the transcriptions, you kind of see it, and you can play it as written, but I think that it's missing those little subtleties, and I'm pretty sure he didn't say when he transcribed Smells Like Teen Spirit exactly where you need to do the upstrokes and exactly where you need to do these half-ass palm mutes and where you're supposed to just play these open-ended open strumming of the strings very subtly in between, you know what I mean, like that kind of shit.
Yeah, because I don't know if we've talked about this before. We're almost getting to the point where I'm like, I don't know if we talked about this in a previous podcast or not. But we both know the Talking Heads fairly well.
Fairly well, yeah.
What's her name? It was a woman.
You brought this up.
Weymouth?
I have no idea.
Her last name is Weymouth.
Weymouth.
And she used a claw technique.
Uh-huh.
Which is basically your four fingers excluding your pinky.
Uh-huh.
So your E string would get the thumb, your A string would get your pointing finger.
Oh, okay.
The A string would get your middle finger, or
the D.
The D would get your middle finger, the G would get your ring finger.
The ring finger.
And so when you do that, you can effectively, especially with the A, D, and G strings, you're muting. Instead of going here and hitting and moving up and down, when you're up and down, when you're going across the strings, each finger is muting the other strings.
Right.
So it's a lot cleaner.
Okay.
And muting gets a lot, because muting is just as important, especially with bass, because if you overlap two notes a lot of times on bass, you get that funky overtone, and it's not clean and it's sloppy. So muting is extremely important. Because if you go like dun on A string to G string, and if you overlap those two, it's you get all these fucking overtone crap in it, and it doesn't sound good. Especially like a little triad or something, it doesn't. You have to separate that and mute that. You got to make sure it's clean. If you overlap it just a little bit, you're gonna get that overtone, and it sounds out of tune. It sounds horrible.
It's gonna flub together, and it's gonna sound like
together,
crap.
and it's not gonna sound good.
So she kept her wrist stationary then.
Well, yeah, but with that, it's kind of to the side. I mean, she did a lot of different techniques depending on what she was doing.
Oh, all
but
right.
that was one of them.
Interesting.
And that's one, and I use it. I kind of got used to it, and I use it a good bit, and it makes things a lot cleaner. Mm-hmm. It makes notes a lot cleaner.
And
And
you can use that for
she
certain
would play
styles,
shit.
though.
She would play shit that like Killers. Listen to that song.
Mm-hmm.
Listen to the bass line on that.
Mm-hmm.
Have fun.
Hmm.
You would swear it was like a keyboard or something that was doing that, or synthesizer.
Mm-hmm.
No, it's her.
No, I'm kind of picturing it right now in my head. Yeah, that's really
It's kind of
It's
like
got that-
syncopated.
that staccato kind of
It's strange.
thump to it. That you're right. I mean, and if those notes blended together, it wouldn't have the same
Ugh.
effect.
Be ugly.
I was listening to oh my gosh, what would it be? Not funk, but I don't know. I guess some R&B.
Mm-hmm.
You know. And I was noticing, that's funny that you bring it up. I was noticing where the bass was, and then I was noticing where the bass wasn't.
Mm-hmm.
And I would imagine it would be so challenging as a bass player to know exactly when to just shut the fuck up and not do anything.
Yeah.
As an instrument that I guess traditionally is kind of is kind of on the the underscore of things.
Well,
in the background, if you will.
Well,
Depending on what-
it's good that you bring up Motown, because any bass player that's been around, I mean, everybody knows who James Jamerson is.
Mm-hmm.
That was the Motown dude.
Mm-hmm.
He was on hundreds
He
and
played
hundreds of recordings, and his philosophy was, when you're going and you're on the wrong note, go sharp or flat a half step, and you'll be there.
Mm-hmm.
So, which was kind of disheartening. It's like, yeah, okay. Easier said than done, right?
Uh-huh.
But, back then with the R&B, that was, you listened to a lot of those songs, and what was the guitar player doing? Wank, 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 ding, 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 wank.
Doing a lot of rhythm.
Doing just rhythm.
Yeah.
Just kind of keeping with
Yeah.
that's all they were really doing. And the bass player held the melody.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of that shit, that was James Jamerson laying it the fuck down.
Yeah, it varies so much depending on what style you're talking about.
I mean, Bernadette. Bernadette.
Yeah.
Da-da-da. That's
Yeah,
a big
dude.
one. That's a James Jamerson fucking
Mm-hmm.
jam there. Surprisingly, a lot of the Jackson 5 stuff in the studio was James Jamerson.
Oh, yeah.
A lot of early stuff.
Okay.
A, B, C.
Oh, my gosh.
That's all James Jamerson stuff.
Oh, shit.
Yeah.
Some great fucking bass lines on
Yeah.
that shit, especially that song.
He's the
God damn. Well, it's not Motown that I had in mind, to be honest with you. I was thinking more like R&B soul kind of stuff.
I hear you, but hey,
know?
I'm a bass player. I can go with anything.
Which was more vocal prominent, you know? And so I guess I'm saying, like, they knew when to shut up when the vocals were trying to be more prominent.
Yeah.
They would stand back, and then in between, verses, they would come forward a little bit, you
Yeah.
know? And the guitar was, practically non-existent. It was just kind of, serving the same role, just like as a filler.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And just like the strings or Sometimes the keyboard would play. But fuck that, dude, because we're playing metal. And the bass and the guitars is pretty much the only instruments that they have, aside from percussion.
And we'll hold that thought, because let me get another beer.
A beer.
And I'm going to make me a little cocktail with the beer. I'm
There you
going
go.
to share that with you. It's interesting.
Sounds good.
And metal bassist. We're going to get into that
Mm-hmm.
right.
American lager.
We will not be telling you what we're drinking.
That's our little secret.
Not unless someone wants to pay us.
Yeah. For all the advertising and exposure that they'll get.
Yeah. So metal bassist.
Metal bassist, yeah.
You know, that's always been a thing. You know, the first thing that got me, I wanted to be a drummer originally, and then I heard Metallica and I heard this crap in the background. I'm like, what the fuck is that? Oh, and I found out it was bass. I'm like, okay, I'll do that.
So you weren't listening to Injustice for All then? That was a different
That
album.
was Kill 'Em All.
All right.
Ride the Lightning or something.
Uh-huh.
And so, like, here's the thing. Like, you know, with heavy music.
Right.
Wait, that was good. One more. It's delicious. I wish I could tell you what it is, but I won't.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, guitars, man, that was the thing. The guitars got heavy and heavy and heavier, and you know, a very few bassists found a way around it. Cannibal Corpse was one, even though Alex Webster didn't really need to, because you know, Cannibal Corpse guitars weren't really that low and deep and heavy. To me, they were kind of more like razor blades, jigga jigga jan, jigga jigga jan, jigga jigga jan, jigga jigga, just kind of dug into you. And but what Cannibal Corpse did and Alex Webster did is they kind of got ingy and clanky. And that and really that's what a lot of metal bassists had to do is you know, you listen to Alex Webster stuff and a lot of metal stuff, Megadeth, Deicide.
Mm-hmm.
They got ingy and clanky with their bass, and you can hear them. It just kind of clanked.
So a lot of like upper mid range, just kind of metallic snarl.
Yeah,
is what you're talking
because
about.
and basically that was the only way a metal bass player could be heard. Because the guitars got heavier and they want this big jin. Well, you know, and when I got into recording, I started to understand this. The body and the depth of a guitar sound is around 200 hertz, and bass is about 1 to 1, you know, 80 to 100. It's very close. If you really want to boost the bass, you boost 100, and the bass will just. So basically, what you have, and when you're recording and you're making a recording, it's called carving EQ holes. And me and Jason used to have a lot of, and Dave used to have a lot of conversations about this. You have to, if you have a lot, if your guitar is really low and bassy, especially in a recording. It's different when you're practicing and you're live and all that stuff. But when you're recording, if your guitars are real low and bassy, you're not going to hear the bass.
Yeah.
If you cut that frequency, if you drop that frequency in the guitar sound, the bass will just jump out of the mix and you didn't touch the volume. Ooh, how did that happen? Well, you freed up the frequency. If you got everything jammed over there, the guitar tone in metal, it stomps all over the bass player's frequency.
Yeah.
This is me, I'm bass, this is where I live. Your guitar, you live over here. You should be competing with the vocals, and you shouldn't be competing with me.
See, that's one of the mistakes that I made in my ute.
The ute.
I was trying to get the guitar to sound too boomy, and too thick, and really it, at least by modern standards, after hearing more stuff and maybe refining my taste a little bit, probably should have been playing around more in the mid-range than, at the time, dude, everything, the whole scooped sound was like so damn popular, but now that's not necessarily depending on what style you're listening to, but now that's not necessarily the case at all.
Yeah, and so that really was very problematic for me as a young bass player, because I was a bass player that liked to feel the bass. I wanted my bass. I didn't like that clangy shit.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't like the crack, 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 that clanginess.
Yeah.
The inginess. I didn't like it. And when I turned my rig up, I wanted to feel the doom, doom. I wanted to feel my notes. I wanted to feel my notes.
Right.
And that's the way I've always heard it, and that's the way I've always felt happier, even though I tried to kind of get that ingy sound with that good bass undertone. I always fought with it, and I got away from it because I wanted to feel that just bass.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a bass player. I wanted to feel that low. I wanted to be the low tone.
Mm-hmm.
Fuck me, right?
Yeah. Well.
And it was difficult to be heard. It's like, man, you need to turn your bass up. I'm like, the fuck, I'm at fucking 10 to go outside, and that's all you hear.
Right.
So that goes like this, and this is what was problematic about bass, is bass is a low, slow waveform.
Yeah.
It's big and low and floppy, and treble is tight and sharp, and short. So you're playing these low floppy notes through big speakers, low floppy speakers. So it takes a long time, so it travels.
Right.
It may take a whole 2-3 cycles before it hits you, where the guitars and vocals and everything may travel a couple of hundred cycles before it hits you. So that's why when you're playing a little club or something, you go outside and all you hear is the bass. It travels. So it was problematic, and really the only fix for it is you got to get that guitar player out of your fucking frequency.
Yep.
Get off my shit. And doing that in recording, and you got to prove it to people, and you drop that low frequency out the guitar, and boop, wow, there's all the bass.
Yeah.
And you don't touch the volume.
Yep.
The proof is there. But and so now I have no competition. Just bass and drums.
Yep. Do you find that the kick drum offers
life is a whole lot easier without that pesky guitar player?
Do you find that kick drum offers any sort of complication at all? Probably not, because it's so intermittent compared to like a bass note.
Yeah, no, but it still holds the fundamental problem. Is out of everything in your kit, that's the lowest frequency, so that's going to be the hardest thing to hear. So you can go to Led Zeppelin. The best drum recordings from John Bonham's kit was 3 microphones. 1 kick drum just for the kick, and 2 overheads picking up the whole kit.
Wow.
And we've done it before when we've played little small shows and you got a PA. It's like, well, we can't really mic quite the whole drum kit. Can you at least do the kick drum? Yeah. Let's do the kick drum.
All right.
If you got to mic anything,
serious, yeah.
And then Morrisound Studios came along, which was a huge, all the Cannibal Corpse and Deicide and all of those great albums they recorded.
Yep.
was they were the ones that kind of pioneered the little the bass drum click.
Ah.
Make it clicky.
Yep.
Which was a compensation that the bass players were trying to do too.
Mm-hmm.
They got more clicky and clangy so they can be heard over the guitars.
You know.
And so they did the kind of same thing with the kick drum.
Yeah.
And they made that kick drum kind of, they added that click
But
to the
with
kick
that-
drum. Boy, you could hear that motherfucker then.
With that rapid fire kick drum stuff,
Mm-hmm.
I'm starting to sound like one of our parents or whatever. Like that noise that kick drum made, that rapid fire shit, dude. Kind of makes me wonder, what did that really contribute to the overall sound, aside from the pulse itself? In other words, I can't think of I can't think of too many acts that relied on the actual bass frequency from the kick drum to complete the sound. You know what I mean? That click, that presence,
Yes.
okay, the pulse that it provided, yeah. It you know, provided a counterpoint to the ride or the cymbals
Yeah.
and the snare,
Yes.
you know, that sort of thing. But like the actual bass frequencies, I mean, with the fucking shit that we listen to, dude, I mean, you had rumbling thunder coming from the bass, and oftentimes from the guitar. Shit, oftentimes from the vocals. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean,
Yeah.
the bass, the low frequency was covered. So I mean, I can't think of too many. I'm thinking of Slayer right now. Okay, Slayer, unless you've got like a good home stereo, a hi-fi setup, the bass, the kick drum, the bass drum wasn't really too bassy. It was more, it had that little bit of a click to it, a little bit, you know, but it had like kind of a thump to it. Like a thump, almost like a low mid-range thump.
I think
Do you know what I'm talking about?
Yes, the correct term you're looking for is pillowy.
Oh, pillowy.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, and well, you think about it. What would double bass be if it was just? You know what I mean? I'll give you a perfect example.
like a giant jazz bass drum. Dum, dum.
Right.
Yeah, it would be mud. It would be garbage. Yeah, it would
And
muddle everything
go
up.
back to those old 50s and 60s, like the Motown stuff. You never heard of a kick drum. It was implied that it was there, but you didn't hear it in none of those recordings.
Mm-hmm.
You never heard it. Never heard it. But here's a really good example: is Sepultura Rise.
Ah.
So what was going on in that recording? You know, the drums were all triggered, of course, because they sound phenomenal.
Yeah.
And what was the bass player sound? It was just this ingy. There was not a whole lot of depth or substance to it.
It wasn't really, yeah.
It wasn't very prominent, but with the kick drum, it was like a fucking clack, 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 clack. That was the kick drum sound.
Yeah.
And God bless him, because you could, and I used to do this even back then, is because, you know, for a while that was one of our favorite albums.
Oh, yeah.
And I can't listen to that album without honing in on Igor's kick drum, and that's an album by itself.
Yes,
just listening to his kick drum, it was
just isolate the kick and
just listen to the kick drum,
Yeah.
and that entire album, and it's music, just the kick drum.
Mm-hmm.
It's an album by itself.
Yes, it is. Yeah, but that fucking album was so guitar and vocal heavy, no doubt. You know, as far as like I mean, dude, that fucking guitar sound just tore through the cosmos, man. That was a defining album in my view.
And what was his name? Andreas Kisser.
Andreas Kisser, yeah.
And I loved his solos.
Yeah.
It was like a harmonist pedal,
Dude,
or something that he used a lot.
he used a lot of octave dividers. He used a lot of modulation in his shit.
Yeah.
And just the way he played was just kind of like, it was kind of all,
Yeah.
kind of all
I
all
loved how
over
he
the place.
used those effects on his solos. It was like
Yeah.
a harmonist pedal, I want to say. I
Well,
want to say that's what he used, is a harmonist pedal.
really?
Yeah.
Strictly speaking, that's a Boss pedal right there. I used to have one of those.
Yeah.
A little blue, little harmonizing pedal. You dial in 2 tone harmony frequencies. It's an awesome pedal.
Yeah.
But you had to play in key, and that and for metal that was kind of no bueno.
Yeah. But for some, I could be wrong, but for some reason, I want to say it was a harmonist pedal.
Man, he probably used a lot of rack effects for that.
Yeah, probably so.
Because I know they used a lot of harmonizers in the studio for a lot of bands, a lot of the rock and metal shit that we listened to. Eventide harmonizers and TC Electronics, a lot of those higher end stuff.
Eventide, the
Yeah.
shit I can't afford.
Exactly. Which brings us back to the whole thing about shit's expensive, man.
What the fuck is it? Legendary compressor.
Is it a tube compressor or a rack
Yeah.
compressor?
Tube compressor.
Huh. I think I know what you're talking about too.
Something audio. I can't think of it, but I never did pay too much mind because they easily go for $2,000 a piece for a mic preamp. It's like, yeah, okay.
I mean, if you want the kind of sound that produces that, dude, you're a fucking you're a professional studio
Microphones.
already.
Microphones. Fuck.
Hmm.
You can easily go into the
Thousands, tens of thousands.
the AKG condensers. The legendary vocal microphones. Fuck.
Well, those Neumann microphones are expensive
Neumann.
as shit. Is it Neumann?
Or whatever the shit it is. I think it. Yeah.
Neumann.
Royer is another one.
Never even heard of that.
Hmm. Don't bother.
Nah.
Out of our league.
No, I'm not. I'm not building a studio in the fucking Swiss Alps anytime soon.
Yeah, so the bass is back together. Fixed by Ingenuity and Home Depot.
Congratulations.
Hopefully it does it. I had to do some modifications with a plate.
Well, you've got a show coming up in October, man.
Yeah, the end of October 27th. So we pretty much got the set, pretty much got all the little kinks and changes and everything worked out. We kind of even know how we're going to bleed one song into the next, because our little idea that me and Joe were talking about is we're just not going to stop.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to say anything. I'm just going to get up there, start playing, and not stop until we're done.
Because I've got nothing to say to these fucking people anyway.
Here it is. Take it if you can.
It's gonna be a good show, man. I'll be there.
And
That's
so
Sully's.
now we're just kind of at the point where we're just rehearsing for the show, which is good because we got plenty of time. So that's good.
Yeah, just over a month.
And which that reminds me of the greatest show I ever saw in my life.
What's that?
State Palace Theater.
Ooh.
Prong,
Oh.
Sepultura,
Ooh.
and Pantera.
Wow.
Pantera was coming off of... Sepultura was coming off of Arise.
Mm.
Pantera was coming off of Vulgar Display of Power.
Mm-hmm.
And whatever the fuck Prong was doing. Snap your finger, snap your neck.
Prong was coming off of heroin.
Snap your finger, snap your neck.
I saw those guys in Seattle.
They're still around.
Yeah. They are. God damn
But,
it, they are.
You know, the show was whatever, and then fucking Sepultura was second. Pantera closed it out.
Okay.
And when Sepultura come on, it was fucking incredible. I don't even know what fucking songs they played. They played a lot of shit off of Arise, but
Mm-hmm.
it was just absolute fucking chaos. Max come out there and what? 1, 2, 3, go! And it was just 45 minutes of fucking... They bled every song into the next. It was a fucking whirlwind. They didn't stop. They didn't fucking break. They didn't count for the next song.
Mhm.
Every song bled into the next. It was one continuous song. It was nonstop for 45 minutes.
God damn. Who were you there with?
Oh, God. I was there with... I don't think Joe was there. Keith and Randy. Paxton was
Oh,
there.
all right.
I think Joe and Sean was there. I don't think they were.
Hmm.
I mean, we were smoking weed in the fucking. We were actually up on the balcony.
Mm-hmm.
Paxton was there. I can't remember if Joe and Sean was there or not. I really can't.
Tim went there?
I believe it was Tim. Fuck, that was a long time ago, dude.
Yeah, I know I went there.
And that was unbelievable set by Sepultura. Unbelievable. Yeah,
Dude.
Tim was there.
Oh, all right.
Tim was there.
All right.
I mean, they just did not stop. Because I've seen Sepultura about 4 or 5 times. And that was the only show they did like that. I mean, they just came out and just went, go. 45 minutes later, they walked off.
God damn.
It was crazy.
It worked out well that Prong started so late. Dude, that sounds intense.
Snap your finger, snap your neck.
Yeah, they were amusing.
And
Oh,
then,
that was that Anthrax show, now that I'm thinking about it.
Hmm.
When I saw Prong.
Okay.
Saw Anthrax up there. Whoops. Up in the Pacific Northwest.
Up in Oregon.
I think this is in Seattle. So that was up in Washington State.
Was it raining?
Of course. It's always raining. That's why I'm back here. Where it's only raining half the time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, we've seen Sepultura. God. Had to be at least 3 or 4 times.
Still never saw them once.
I think we saw them twice for Roots. Roots. Bloody Roots.
See, at that point, I had lost interest.
Yeah.
I didn't really care for their shit after that.
I was still a fan, though.
I mean, actually, Chaos ED was kind of pushing it.
I like Chaos.
I still like it. I still like it, you know, but I didn't like it as much as I did Arise. And
Not
after,
too long ago, I revisited that album and listened to it.
Yeah.
It's good.
No, it is. It's different. But at that point, it started to get more and more different.
War for Territory.
Mm-hmm.
That was a cool video, too.
Yeah, all covered in mud.
Yeah. War for Territory.
Easily mute Headbanger's Ball.
We all learned that song.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
We learned that song when Joe was still on guitar, I believe.
That was before my time.
Yeah.
Yeah.
He was still on guitar.
Uh-huh.
It was right around that time where we yeah, we need a drummer, and Joe, you're out the band. What? Are you serious? Tim found him a drum set for like $50. It
Uh-huh.
was held together by like baling wire and duct tape.
Dude, that shit was like taped together.
Yeah, it was like, well, you can get back in the band if you buy this drum set for $50. Okay. And he took to it like a fish in water, and the rest is history. But I'll tell you how long ago that was. That was in the days of three-way calling.
Oh, yes. Okay.
So, like, me and Tim would talk about it and devise our plan of how we're going to convince Joe to play drums.
Uh-huh.
And they're like, okay, you ready? All right, I'm going to three-way him. Okay, you ready? All right, go. All right, wait. You're going to do the talking. I'm just going to listen, right? Yeah.
Well, shit. So that would have been, I mean, dude, that was like summer of my senior year in high school. It would have been like 94, 95,
Yeah.
I believe.
Had to be 94. Great time to be a metalhead.
Almost as old as that amp of yours.
Yeah.
Yeah, you're right about that. Great time to be a metalhead. We talked about that last time, I think. to some degree, but I'm out of touch now
Yeah, I know.
for the most part.
Joe's telling me about new Clutch albums and Mantar albums.
Mantar like fire. I think it's about time to wrap this one up there, Troy.
Yes, it is. And before I do,
Yeah.
it's right about time for me to make this little strange little concoction that I do.
Is this a strange brew?
Yeah, Jason really hates it, but I kind of dig it.
What the hell is it?
Well, I'll get about halfway through a beer.
This is recipe hour now.
Yeah, and what I do is well, the beer's still somewhat cold
Uh-huh.
because I don't have a cup. And this is, necessity is the mother of all inventions.
Sure.
So I don't have a cup or I think any ice left
Uh-huh.
down here. But I really want to drink some bourbon.
Uh-huh.
So what I'm going to do, I got about half a beer, and I'm going to take about a shot of bourbon, and I'm going to pour it into my beer bottle. That ought to be good.
All right.
Give it a little stir. I like it. I think it tastes great.
That's a Burlermaker, isn't it? Or a variation of?
Yeah, I guess it's a poor man's variation of one.
Everything we do is a poor man's version of whatever it is.
That
we do.
is true.
Yeah.
It could be colder, but
Beggars aren't being choosers right about now.
it's Friday night, so fuck it.
Exactly. All right, Troy.
All right, kids.
Yes, indeed.
That's enough for us.
This was fun.
Jesus, is that 85 minutes?
That is.
Wow. I think we're getting better at this.
Don't worry, I'll whittle it down to about 25 post-production.
Yeah, the editing will be about 15 minutes worth of usable material. Goodbye.
See ya.